Welcome, marked one. The signal reached you. There comes a moment so quiet, so sacred, that only your spirit can hear it. A whisper not from the outside world, but from within. It's not loud, but it's undeniable. It's that divine stirring deep in your soul saying, "It's already done." And yet, your eyes haven't seen the proof. The world around you hasn't changed, but something inside you has. Something radical, eternal. This is the shift no one talks about. The one that doesn't announce itself with fireworks, but with stillness. You don't even realize it's happening until you notice. You no longer crave what used to consume you. You no longer flinch at silence. That, marked one, is the beginning. You've been through nights that tested your very breath. You've sat in rooms where your prayers felt like they bounced off the ceiling. You've walked roads paved with waiting, wondering, and quiet surrender. But now, without fanfare, without trumpets, something has moved. At this moment, if your heart feels like it's being spoken to, I want you to do something. Pause and comment below. "I felt it." Let this be your public confirmation of what your spirit already knows. And if this resonates with you, subscribe, because these aren't just words. They're echoes of your breakthrough. You're no longer surviving. You're listening. And in that listening, you've already shifted dimensions. Not physically, but spiritually. You've crossed over, not into a new place, but into a new version of yourself. And the world hasn't caught up yet. You walk the same paths, speak with the same people, do the same things, but internally, you are forever different. You've stopped begging God for signs and started recognizing the ones He's already given. You used to ask for peace. Now you walk in it. You used to plead for clarity. Now you move with confidence. Marked one, this is the moment where faith no longer feels like effort, it feels like oxygen. You are no longer waiting for the door to open. You are the door. You've carried weight that would have crushed someone else. You've navigated storms that would have drowned others. But here you are, not broken, not bitter, but wiser. Still, attuned. This sacred awareness that hums in your bones, that's the sound of alignment. That's what happens when your soul finally catches up with its own prophecy. The prayers that seemed unanswered were actually planting seasons. The silence wasn't a punishment, it was a recalibration. You're not late. You're in divine rhythm. And now, when someone asks you what's changed, you struggle to explain. Because how do you articulate an internal earthquake? How do you describe the moment when your spirit outgrew your surroundings? You've stopped chasing closure. You've stopped searching for apologies. You no longer need the old to make sense in order for the new to be sacred. This is where the victory begins, not in what you see, but in what you know. And what you know is this: something has already shifted, and your name has already been called. Your yes to alignment didn't happen in a spotlight, it happened in shadows. In the moments where no one clapped, but you kept going. In the decisions where you chose purpose over popularity. That's when heaven leaned in and said, "This one is ready." You've been refined, not ruined, replanted, not rejected. You are now blooming in soil you once thought was barren. You're not empty. You're expanded. There's a story of a man who once walked through the desert, thinking God had forgotten him. But in the silence, he learned to listen. And in the listening, he discovered that the desert wasn't a place of death. It was a womb. A sacred space where identity isn't stripped, it's revealed. You are in that place now, and the most powerful part, you no longer fear the quiet, you welcome it. Because you now know what silence sounds like when God is in it. Your calm is no longer a reaction, it's your residence. Your peace is no longer fragile, it's your posture, and this is only the beginning. There's a moment, subtle yet seismic, when your spirit whispers what your mouth hasn't dared to speak yet: "I'm not the same." You wake up and realize, without ceremony, without confirmation, that the war inside you has gone quiet. Not because life got easier, but because you got stronger. That's victory. Not the kind that trends, The kind that transforms. You notice that the storms still come, but they no longer shake you. The people who once had the power to break you now barely ripple your peace. You're not cold. You're calibrated. This is what spiritual victory looks like before the celebration begins. It's internal. It's sacred. It's unmistakable. You begin to crave solitude, not to escape the world, but to reconnect with God. Silence becomes a sanctuary. And when you speak now, it's with intention. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need to be seen to feel valid. You're living from overflow, not emptiness. When confusion tries to revisit you, your discernment stands like a gatekeeper. That old urge to explain yourself, to shrink your light so others feel comfortable, gone. You realize that peace is not something you pursue. It's the place you've made your home. You used to fear solitude. Now you guard it. Why? Because something holy happens in the stillness. You remember who you are, and with that remembrance comes recognition. You're no longer waiting for validation. You're moving from revelation. Marked 1, your language has changed. You used to speak from wounds. Now you speak from wisdom. You used to chase answers. Now you carry them. When people walk away now, you don't spiral. You bless them. Because you understand that departures don't always mean dishonor. Sometimes they're just divine edits. Your energy no longer entertains everything. Not because you think you're better, but because you know what it costs to be misaligned. You've started treating your time, your presence, your peace as sacred currency. And that's not arrogance. That's alignment. You start to notice how different environments affect your spirit. You walk into certain rooms and feel the dissonance instantly. You engage in some conversations and feel your soul contract. That's not hypersensitivity. That's spiritual intelligence. It's the realization that not every space deserves your frequency. You no longer feel obligated to overstay in places that feel spiritually bankrupt. You used to hustle for peace. Now peace finds you. This new posture isn't pride, it's precision. You've tuned yourself to heaven's voice, and now anything off-key is instantly obvious. You can sit in the same chaos that used to rattle you and feel unbothered. Why? Because your peace is no longer circumstantial, it's foundational. The storm still exists, but you've become the eye of it. And when delays happen now, you don't spiral. You seek understanding. You've learned to say, if it's not now, it's protection. If it's not them, it's redirection. If it's not this, it's preparation. This is spiritual maturity, the fruit of unseen roots. You used to worry whether your prayers were working. Now you know that your alignment is the answer. You've started seeing miracles in moments. You see God's fingerprints in traffic, in timing, in random text messages that arrive right after you prayed. Coincidence? No. Confirmation. The evidence of your transformation is subtle but undeniable. You no longer need to shout your worth, you embody it. People feel it before you speak. They respond to your spirit without knowing why. And when someone says, "You've changed," you smile. Because yes, you have, and finally, it's in the direction of your destiny. You've become what you once prayed for. Not because of what you have, but because of who you've become. And here's the most powerful part. The blessings you used to chase are now chasing you. Not because you earned them through effort, but because you aligned through surrender. That's the divine paradox. You gain the most when you let go. You find the answers when you stop demanding them. You win the race when you stop running and start walking with God. This is your evidence. This is your victory. And the world still might not understand it. They'll wonder why you're not panicked, why you're not desperate, why you're not broken. But that's okay. Because what they call apathy, is authority. You carry peace not because everything's perfect, but because you're anchored. You glow not because life is easy, but because your oil is divine. This isn't performance. This is power. And it started in silence. So if you're still waiting for the world to validate, you stop. The victory already lives in your stillness, in your restraint, in your ability to say no to what no longer serves your soul. You've already won. Now walk like it. There's a woman named Amara from Nairobi. She used to pray for peace while living in a whirlwind of toxic relationships and non-stop striving. One day, she turned off her phone, opened her Bible, and didn't leave her room for 48 hours. When she emerged, she didn't go back to her old life. She downsized, left her job, and started a candle company that uses scripture on every label. Her peace became her product, and her glow? It's not marketing, it's mantle. There comes a moment when need to control fades. Not because you've given up, but because you've grown up spiritually. That moment when you stop gripping every outcome like your life depends on it. That's not loss. That's liberation. Marked 1. Detachment isn't about caring less. It's about trusting more. It's when your soul whispers, even if it doesn't go my way, I'm still in. Alignment. You used to cling tightly to people, plans, timelines. Now your hands are open. And that posture, that's power. Because you've learned that what is truly yours won't require you to beg, chase, or break. You begin to notice that your peace no longer shatters with a missed call, a closed door, or a delayed dream. Your security is no longer in outcomes, it's in obedience. You don't panic when things fall apart. You ask, God, what are you building through this? This is where divine timing replaces anxiety. You're not racing anymore. You're resting. Not in laziness, but in trust. And that trust has become your compass. You've stopped praying out of panic. You now pray from alignment. You used to rush decisions. Now you wait until peace confirms the path. You've traded pressure for presence. And what once required urgency now moves through flow. Detachment is not indifference. It's authority in disguise. It says, I don't need to manipulate outcomes. I move in step with what God has already written. You used to fear silence. Now you seek it. You used to dread delay. Now you honor it. You understand now that divine pauses are not punishments. They are places of preparation. The wilderness wasn't designed to break you. It was designed to build you, to empty you of what was never yours and fill you with what eternity has assigned. There's a story of Luca, a photographer from Rome. He spent years pitching galleries, chasing curators, exhausting his soul in search of exposure. Until one season, after fasting and prayer, he deleted all his social apps. Instead of promoting himself, he poured into his craft. Months later, his work was discovered by accident by a global publisher. His detachment became his doorway. This is your season of divine rhythm. And rhythm doesn't come from striving. It comes from stillness. You've begun to realize that time is no longer your enemy. You're no longer watching the clock, you're watching the spirit. You don't wake up with dread anymore. You rise with direction. Even your language reflects. It used to say, why is this happening to me? Now you say, what is this shaping in me? That's not semantics. That's spiritual sovereignty. You've stopped forcing what doesn't fit. You've stopped shrinking to be chosen. You've stopped asking, what can I do to make it happen? And started asking, God, is this even mine? That shift is sacred. You're learning that saying no isn't rejection, it's redirection. That letting go isn't loss, it's lightness. And with every no, you're getting closer to your holy yes. You've stopped looking for shortcuts. Because now you trust the scenic route. You know that God's path isn't always fastest, but it's always safest. There's something divine about waiting when others are rushing, about remaining still when others scatter. You've entered the slow miracle, the kind that takes root before it bears fruit. The tree doesn't panic in winter. It rests because it knows that its fruitfulness is tied not to pace, but to position. You've stopped hustling for peace. You've become it. Detachment shows up when you let people leave, and you still bless them. When you let dreams shift without questioning your worth. When your soul says, even if this season never looks how I pictured, I will still praise. That's when you know you're anchored. You don't need the outcome to prove your obedience. You don't need the spotlight to feel successful. You don't need the crowd to confirm your crown. Detachment gives you X-ray vision. You start to see beyond what's happening into what's unfolding. You start to hear God in pauses, not just in progress. And the most astonishing part? You begin to sense your breakthrough not by external signs, but by the internal rest. You've stopped rushing healing. You've stopped forcing reconciliation. You've stopped proving your readiness. You are walking in a pace that mirrors heaven. This doesn't mean apathy. It means assurance. Assurance that what's aligned cannot be taken. What's promised cannot be canceled. What's divine cannot be delayed by human hands. Even Jesus modeled this in the garden. Not my will, but yours be done. That wasn't surrender to defeat. That was surrender to destiny. There's a woman named Alina from Cape Town. She spent a decade trying to make a relationship work. She compromised, adjusted, and contorted herself for love. But one day, in prayer, she whispered, I choose peace. Even if it costs me this person. She left. She healed. She surrendered. And months later, love returned, not the same person, but a divine connection rooted in truth. Her surrender didn't delay love. It realigned it. This is what detachment births true intimacy with God. Because when you're no longer clinging to idols, you're finally free to hold hands with your calling. You've stopped over-explaining your growth. You've stopped justifying your silence. You've stopped being available to what drains you. And in that space, something holy has bloomed. Confidence. Quiet. Sovereign confidence. So now, when someone says, aren't you worried? You say, no, I'm aligned. Because worry is what happens when you carry what God never asked you to hold. And you, marked 1, are done carrying what's not yours. This is the reward of detachment, not a life without trials, but a spirit. Untouched by their noise, you're not passive. You're positioned. You're not stalled. You're synchronized. The timing isn't off. It's orchestrated. And your peace? That's the proof. There's a shift so sacred, it cannot be explained. It must be witnessed. And now, the world is beginning to witness yours. Marked 1, this is the season where what was hidden becomes undeniable. You've carried transformation in silence. You've grown in the dark, like roots wrapping deep into soil. And now, the bloom is inevitable, but it's not the glow people expect. It's not glitter, it's gravity. You walk in a room and things shift. You haven't said a word, but your spirit has already introduced you. You carry weight, not the heavy kind, but the holy kind. The kind that makes people pause and wonder why they feel different in your presence. That's not charisma. That's calling. The glow is the result of every yes you gave God in private. It's the byproduct of staying when you wanted to run, praising when you wanted to break, choosing obedience when rebellion was easier. That glow? It's your history with God made visible. You used to wonder if the world would ever see what God sees in you. Now the world is catching up to what heaven always knew. The ripple has begun. People start seeking you out, not for advice, but for atmosphere. They're drawn not to your words, but to your warmth. Not to your influence, but to your integrity. And it humbles you, because you remember when you were the one searching for light in others. But now you are the lighthouse. Not because you asked to be, but because you surrendered to be. And the ripple doesn't just affect strangers. It touches old relationships. People who once overlooked you begin to notice. Not because you changed your approach, but because your presence is louder than their memory of you. You don't need to explain who you've become. You just need to continue being it. And what's wild is this glow doesn't come from striving. It comes from stillness. You're not forcing visibility. You're flowing in visibility. You're not auditioning for relevance. You've been anointed for relevance. Your prayers carry weight. Your silence speaks volumes. Your peace is no longer a private experience. It's a shared encounter. And yes, there will be those who feel uncomfortable around your light. Some will project, some will distance. But that's not your weight to carry. You've stopped dimming just to keep others comfortable. You've stopped apologizing for the presence you carry. Because this glow, it's not just yours. It's generational. It will impact rooms you haven't walked into yet. It will soften hearts you haven't met yet. It will heal people through conversations you never expected to have. And this glow was never about ego. It's about assignment. You are now a vessel, a mirror, a message. You are the answer to someone else's unspoken prayer. There's a young man named Zion in Belize, quiet, always observing, never seen as the leader. But something shifted. He started praying in secret, journaling in silence, fasting without fanfare. One day, at a family dinner, someone said, "Zion, you feel different." That wasn't a compliment, it was a spiritual recognition. Since then, people have begun calling him for prayer. Not because he sought a title, but because he carried oil. This is the revelation. When you align, heaven amplifies you. Your influence becomes effortless. Your presence becomes prophetic. And your identity is no longer attached to performance. It's rooted in presence. The glow doesn't mean the battles are over. It means you fight from victory, not for it. You're no longer trying to earn the light. You've become a source of it. Not self-made. Spirit-shaped. And the ripple? It grows. You'll receive messages like, "I don't know why, but I felt led to talk to you," or "Your peace helped me find mine." That's not coincidence. That's consequence of your surrender. And your revelation deepens. It was never about spotlight. It was always about stewardship. God trusted you with the quiet years, with the anonymous seasons. And now, He can trust you with visibility, because your heart is still anchored in the secret place. You glow differently when you've been in the fire and came out pure. You ripple differently when your motives have been refined. You reveal differently when your validation comes from heaven alone. This is why you don't panic when things get quiet again. You don't chase platforms. You don't compete. You don't compare, because you know who sent you. You know who sustains you. You understand now that the real flex is peace. That true power is restraint. That lasting influence is born in silence. Not applause. So now, you speak less but say more. You show up and atmospheres shift. You remain rooted while others sway. And here's the final truth, the most sacred revelation of all. You never had to become the light. You always were. The journey wasn't about becoming worthy. It was about realizing you already were. The glow is your birthright. The ripple is your reach. The revelation is your return. So walk boldly, marked one. Carry the light unapologetically. Let the ripple expand without fear. Let your life be the revelation. And if this has touched your spirit, if you've recognized your own journey in these words, comment below. I've seen the ripple. Share your light. And subscribe to. Join a community of marked ones walking in power, peace, and divine timing. Because this is what chosen looks like.